Greetings and welcome to what I expect will be the last appendix in the series of videos on how to use the M-33 process to manage your trading in the financial markets. This series of video instructionals has been presented in several chunks, the first of which were the 3 guides which contain the fundamental concepts. You really should start there if you haven't already. It gives you the basic terminology and the overall structure of the approach. The next part is are the appendices, each of which drills down more deeply into just one of the elements that makes up the overall guide or process. And then thirdly, once you've got all those basics down, are case studies which illustrate how to apply it. They're usually recordings that I've done on a particular day, looking at a particular setup in considerable detail, and that monologue of mine will help you acquire the thought processes that are required to apply the whole system to your own analysis. And then finally, when those 3 are done, you're pretty well done the tutorial portion of all of this, and you then will feel confident to proceed with your own trading. And at that point, I encourage you to go online and find colleagues, if you need be, even create a little cohort of your own of like-minded individuals who trade regularly. And that's where you end up producing or following these little intraday quips. And they are really just miniature case studies. Instead of having a whole drill down and describing an entire setup, it could be something as short as 30 seconds or a minute, and not necessarily video. It can just be a text message pointing out something that an experienced trader has noticed during the course of the day, and that you might very well then include in your watch list of alerts. Thirdly, are 4 what I'm calling mantras. They're just rules of thumb that will save you an awful lot of trouble. And one of the main purposes of a system like this, of course, is risk management, is to avoid large drawdowns. Of course, you want to take advantage of the upside and actually garner some profits as much as possible. But by and large, people who do not succeed at this stuff are people who have let themselves get caught bag holding, as we call it, stuck in a losing position and not getting out of it, and living through weeks and months with their fingers crossed, hoping that it'll turn around and recover the loss. These 4 mantras will go a long way to helping you to avoid those huge drawdowns and confirming your gains. So the first one is that alerts can come from anywhere, and that you should treat even very elite commenters in the financial jargon industry, no matter whether they've paid or charged you thousands of dollars for their comments, or whether it's a freebie crack from a next door neighbor or a favorite uncle who has a tip on a mining stock. It doesn't matter. Any comments coming from anyone outside yourself, you should only treat as alerts. It's a, hey there, have you seen this yet? Well, once you've been alerted to it, Then you load it into the M-33 system and do your own analysis. Because the second mantra is, signals come from you. Only you can promote an alert to signal status and decide whether to enter an order. The third one, and is one of my favorites anyway, is if you don't feel comfortable when you're getting ready to enter an order, reduce the position size until you do. It's as simple as that. If you're not calm about the order you're about to make, reduce your position size until you do feel comfortable. And the last one, which might very well have been first, frankly, is the role of analogies and metaphors in this entire process. Polymath wizards and people with a very scientific and strict mathematical background will look at some of the analogies and metaphors that we've used through the course of these videos and find them a little hokey, a little sophomoric. Well, fine. I will suggest, in keeping with the famous book a century ago from a philosopher by the name of Hans Weininger. It was initially written in German, obviously, and it was simply called The Philosophy of As If, which simply recognized that whether it's children's fairy tales with a moral to them, or any other type of analogy and metaphor, they're often not literally true. They're parables. They're examples of a principle. And there's a sense in which, as you go through these videos, every chart I've shown you, every concept I've described, they're all, well, I shouldn't say all, most are analogies and metaphors for a way to think that if you behave as if they were literally true, you will avoid losses and increase your returns. So if you hear self-appointed wizards putting you down for believing such simple things as are explained in this series of videos, from my point of view at least, I couldn't care less. It's like everything else that we get from outside. They are alerts. They are haze suggesting that we look at something, but they are not signals or direct orders of what we should do. Only you can decide what becomes an actual alert to act upon. Early in the series, I drew the analogy to weather. There are weather reports that simply describe what's going on in the world. There are weather forecasts that do try to predict. They are alerts in the true sense of the word. It's like, hey, board up your windows, be careful, there might be a storm coming. But only you can decide what is no longer an alert, but is an actual signal that sets you rushing for the plywood and the hammer and the nails or the car to evacuate the area you're in. Behaving as if these analogies and metaphors are true will save you from losses and increase your gains. And down at the bottom of the listing of videos, let me draw your attention to the difference between case studies and quips, as I call them. Case studies are still part of the tutorials. They're detailed examinations of particular setup or situation, trading situation during the day. Quips, on the other hand, are like miniature case studies. They can be just 30 seconds or a minute long. They're comments, brief, whether video or by text, that come during the trading day from your fellow traders who happen to be online. In that sense, I want to caution you that having gone through all of these videos and thought about the stuff and practiced with it and watched case studies, don't be fooled. Trust your judgment. You can't really be misled anymore if you do trust your judgment, because it is now pretty highly developed. And as you wander about online, looking for colleagues or a cohort that you can join, beware the obstreperous, foul-mouthed, loudly boasting or trolling and criticizing everyone in sight. The real traders will tend to focus their comments almost entirely on the elements that you've been studying through all of the initial videos in this series. And the ones who are wasting their time whining about Yellen or Jerome Powell or the guy down the road or the bald one on CNBC and that kind of thing, I would steer clear of those guys. The louder they whine and yell, the more likely they are to be just trying to sell you something, whether an idea or for actual cash. So I do encourage you to try to find a group that you feel comfortable with, other traders that you can trade points with. It is a big help. But other than a very, very few real prophets out there that have a bullwhip in their hand, and let's face it, there is a fair bit of fraud and manipulation going on in this domain. And there are a few genuine prophets who take it upon themselves to be the raging watchdog chasing the money changers out of the temple. But by and large, trust your judgment and look for people you feel comfortable with and that tend to stay within the confines of comments about the essential elements that you've learned through M-33 analysis. Remember, the rule of thumb is everything that comes at you from outside can only qualify to be an alert. It's, hey, have a look at this. And the only one who can promote an alert to the level of signal causing you to actually enter an order is you. And believe me, if you've gone through all the videos in this series, and if you've hung out with other experienced traders in either the case studies or the clips, you do now have the judgment to trade for yourself. Go at it carefully at first. Use position sizes that you're comfortable with, but don't be fooled anymore into thinking that you need some messianic trading coach to get you through the day. And finally, hey, I wrote the damn things, and I still rewatch the guides and appendices every once in a while. You should probably have a look at some of the case studies as they appear. I tend to do that less now because I'm more likely to be creating them. But do review the guides, review the appendices, watch a few case studies, and then from there on find yourself a cohort of other traders whose judgment you trust and just banter back and forth with them. As long as you bear in mind, I don't know how many times I've said it, but I'll say it one more time. Even the most elite quip authors, whether free, a neighbor, an uncle with a tip on a mining stock, or a $5,000 a month advisory service, the most elite of the so-called advisors only generate what you should consider to be alerts. They're only heads up for you to take a look at. Load them into your watch lists, load them up into the M-33 monitor screen with its 3 panels, study it for yourself, look for the crossovers, look for the momentum, and make your own decisions. Remember, the bottom line is everybody else's comments are alerts. The signals are yours. And that concludes this series of commentaries and tutorials on the M-33 process for trading the world's financial markets. I hope you've enjoyed listening to them. I hope you can benefit from using the techniques that are described in them. And please know that I have thoroughly enjoyed putting this together and look forward to either comments from you or perhaps even running into you online to discuss actual trades. Thanks very much, and bye for now.